Are you serious? Are you serious? Don't say anything. I'm not supposed to have Heidi's cups downstairs in my office down here. Her cups are to stay upstairs. But I know it's Saturday. I know it's a Sabbath. I'm in my time of rest. But this is such a pressing story. I have to get it to you. We need to pray about this. But it looks like the mayor of Chicago may be about to bring in the United Nations peacekeeping troops to try to bring under control the rule of law in Chicago, a city notoriously known for gangsters and mafia killings. Well, now, and corrupt politics like you wouldn't believe, 5 Illinois governors have been sent to prison. It's not a place where the rule of law has been managed very well. Great people live in Chicago, but there's always been a crime syndicate situation. Well, now we have a serious problem in our urban cities across America, but in Chicago specifically. Over 650 homicides this year in the streets of Chicago. And unfortunately, it is a bloodshed that can't be solved. Now, President Donald Trump has considered sending in the National Guard to try to bring the streets of Chicago under control in some of the neighborhoods. But he hasn't done that. He's trying to get because Chicago is one of the sanctuary cities, he's trying to get Chicago to understand that if they don't be willing to work with the President of the United States, that their funding could be cut off, federal funding, because they are harboring so many illegal aliens, and a lot of criminals, and a lot of gang activity is out of control beyond your comprehension. Well, now Chicago's thinking about bringing in the United Nations, the Blue Hats. What? According to reports, President Donald Trump's implicit potential threat to send in the National Guard of Chicago to solve the city's violence has attracted a lot of ridicule, especially by Hillary Clinton and others. But if the soldiers were wearing blue hats instead of from the United Nations, if the UN sent in the peacekeepers, there might not be as big a problem on the streets. That's what the Cook County Commissioner of Chicago, Richard Boykin, he flew in to New York City to meet with the UN and to discuss what he describes as a quiet genocide in Chicago's black community with the United Nations Assistant Secretary General to talk about a peace-building support. Now, the United Nations has a track record, he said, of protecting minority populations. Boykin said there was tribal warfare was going on between the Tutsis and the Hutus in Africa. The UN deployed peacekeeping troops there to help save those populations and to reduce the bloodshed. We have to do something, he said. Black people in Chicago make up 30% of the entire city's population, yet 80% of the homicides and gun violence is blacks among blacks. And so ask how that might differ from sending in the National Guard. Boykin said the difference is, I'm not sure that the National Guard is used to peacekeeping. He said, I don't think they're used to being peacekeepers. The National Guard, he said, is not used to being a peacekeeping role. And the UN is trained to do this, he said. You'd welcome foreign troops on the streets of Austin, North Lawndale, or Inglewood, or Roseland. These are different communities in the Chicago area. I'm talking about whoever the UN would decide to send in, Boykin responded, adding, I think the Assistant Secretary General may have some good ideas of sending in troops. He may have some ideas on how we can get the peace in those communities. We can't wait for the mayor to put another 1,000 police officers on our streets. And I'm not sure that's going to be, that we can even, if that will even work, he says. It's been a total devastation of the African-American community in Chicago. Asked Wednesday about Boykin's plan to involve the UN, Mayor Rahm Emanuel did not respond directly. but noted improvements in crime statistics and said he was working to ensure that the people feel a sense of security in every neighborhood. So it's not good. The crime, I can tell you, folks, the crime there, the murder rate there, off the charts. It's been off the charts for some time. And under the Obama administration, it continued to spiral out of control in Chicago because, one, Obama just really ignores that there's a problem. And number two, Rahm Emanuel, who was Barack Obama's chief of staff, when he became mayor of Chicago, the murder rate skyrocketed, partly because he decided Chicago was a sanctuary city. Now, you might say, well, Paul, this is black on black killing. You don't understand. There's a lot of gang violence in Chicago. Major gangs are in Chicago. As in any major city, there's gang violence, but major gang violence in Chicago. And an infusion of folks that are coming in not from across the border out of Mexico. That's not the folks that are really causing the problems in Chicago. No, they're coming in from Africa. They're coming in from all over the Middle East. They're coming in from everywhere. They're pouring them into Chicago, creating an environment, a culture that is absolutely toxic. Throw in strict gun laws that the citizens of Chicago not allowed to carry a weapon. Very few can get registered and get authority to have a weapon. Very few. The bad guys know the good guys are not shooting back. And so now the streets become a battlefield, a turf field for the drug war and for the human trafficking and the sex trade. And so this is what's going on. Rahm Emanuel has allowed this city of Chicago to become an absolute war zone. The President of the United States knows that, and he would like to go in and help tighten it down and help bring law and order back and try to help the communities be more safe and secure. Problem is, the courts won't let him. They're already standing in the way. And so he's threatening to pull their funding from them. Of course, they are screaming about that. They don't want that either. They want their money, and they want their cake, and they want to eat it too. And now you have the commissioner of Chicago who realizes that the mayor's not going to fix the problem, and the African-American community is in a state of bloodshed. He's thinking, well, maybe I'll just go to the United Nations. Now, let me just say this. This is also another attempt by the left-wing leaning liberals to undermine the authority of the President of the United States, to take the authority away from the American people and give it to the UN. This is all part of the New World Order's police state. It is a blue hats. The blue hats would have to come in and manage our cities for us. If it's Chicago, then it's New York. If it's New York, then it'd be LA. If it's LA, then it's Houston. If it's Houston, it's Atlanta, and so on. It's beginning, folks. The President of the United States has got to prevent from peacekeeping troops to be sent into Chicago by the United Nations. We cannot have UN troops on our streets. We must fix the problems ourselves. That starts with get rid of these useless leaders who are supposed to be running the cities that have created these sanctuary cities, the lawlessness. We have to start with the political process. Get rid of the leaders and put in people who will actually take charge of their own cities, their own communities, tighten things up with the rule of law, and let's get going forward. And then again, before I even go there, we got to start with prayer. We got to find some God-fearing people. I mean, Heidi's been, with Rachel's Heart, she's constantly bringing up the murder rate in Chicago and pleading the blood of Christ over the little children that walk the streets and sometimes get shot on the way to school or playing in the parks. Prayer, prayer, prayer. I need intercessory prayer warriors. And let's let Paul Begley Prophecy Ministries help in this process by prayer warriors. I got great prayer warriors that are at my website. Any hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, somebody's there praying in the chat room. One at least, maybe two. And Katz does a great job with them. And they're praying. Now, not only are they praying for our ministry and for the great cyber revival that we're doing, and praying for the United States, and praying for the nations of the world, and praying for peace in Jerusalem. We're praying for Chicago, Illinois, and all of our urban neighborhoods, that peace, and that Jesus, the Prince of Peace, can reign. Give your life to Jesus Christ. He's coming soon. We don't need the UN. We can't give our country to the UN. Are you serious?